Hey guys, welcome back. Just here a few minutes early before the official class time, but about 5 minutes or so, it'll be 2:30, and then we'll just jump right into our um, Monday meeting lecture today. Hope you guys had a good weekend, and hope the first week of classes went pretty smooth for everybody. But yeah, here we are. Good to be with you guys. I'm hanging out with Princess Peach over here. She's always a factor. Hello, hi Jasmine. Come on, Peachy. Cool. Anybody that's here? I know it's still early, but feel free to say hi or tap into comments anytime. Hello. Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. What's up? Hello. Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm doing good. It's a solid Monday so far. Had a couple of earlier meetings. Now, just got you guys finished up with, and then I'll be on to the last part of my day. I'll just be pretty much do a run, maybe play some games, just hang out. But hello, everybody. Good to see you guys. I see we're all arriving. Usually that's how it is towards the last few minutes before class, first few minutes of class period. See a lot of numbers come up. It's good to see each and every one of you guys. Hello. You like the Lacoste? Yeah, this is the basic polo. I have a few colors. They're good when it's hot and you want to still look semi-professional or whatever. So black, white, green, and baby blue. I have those four. Cool. Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's coming off a good weekend, got some good rest. Yeah, she's a good cat. Keeps me really good company. There's this whole, I can't really go into it because it's not related to class, but while we have a few minutes before class, this whole last week, at this place where I go run, there's kind of this like little, I don't even know, wooded clearing that's just off to the side, and there's like a stray cat kind of like living over there that I just noticed, and it was coming up to me being really sweet, like totally affectionate, like a house cat. And so I was bringing it some food actually, and I started trying to contact all my friends, see who can adopt a cat. So like a couple different days this weekend, I was out there trying to get this situation straightened out with this random cat that I saw. So I was trying to do a good thing. But as it turned out, after like 3 or 4 days, the cat wasn't there yesterday. The day that my friend actually showed up with like a cat carrier to take it. So anyway, yeah. Wisdom teeth, ouch. Are you in pain right now? I wonder. Hopefully not too bad. But I've still got mine in there, so I guess it hasn't impacted my teeth or anything yet, so hopefully I don't need to get that done in the future. But good on you. It's good to get it done. Now it's over with. Don't have to do it again. Sorry for that. Okay, just another minute or so. I'll be right with you guys. Hi, everybody showing up. Hmm. Come on, Peach. Hello, hi guys. Hey, Luke. Nope. She's almost trying to get up on the keyboard, so I'm trying to stop her. Me? Am I tired? Not really. I'm never tired. I got nothing but energy. Yeah, I don't know. She's kind of just one of those cats. She's really sweet. I think she likes people more than cats. One time I had another cat over here, not her brother, and she was not happy with it. So, yeah, she's a people person. Okay, guys. Well, let's get it started. It's 2:30, so welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys are doing good. Welcome back to Phil 105, Critical Thinking, and we're just going to continue to go back over our notes as we're getting this class underway first few weeks. So I'm going to start just by recapping some of the big things that we talked about last meeting, and then I've got some more material for you guys to add to your notes. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to remind you of the basic things that were discussed on Wednesday last time. So this is a class in critical thinking. We want you guys to be better critical thinkers, better critical reasoners and writers. So the first thing I asked, or not asked, but talked to you about was what it is to be a good critical thinker. And basically, as we discussed, it's the sort of person who would not believe a claim unless it was backed by some kind of good, solid argument, or at least some good evidence. If a claim is put forward to a good critical thinker, but there's no argument for it, or there's not very good reasons or evidence given in support of it, then the critical thinker is not going to be swayed or persuaded. They're going to say, I need more solid evidence. So we want judicious about what things we believe in this world, because we can get beliefs wrong, and if we do, we're misinformed, which is always to our detriment. So good critical thinkers are good at, first of all, only believing things that are based on good arguments. And then the other thing is that a good critical thinker, when they make claims to people, they don't just put out opinions without any facts or reasons to support their views. They supply arguments and evidence to back their claims. So when they make claims, they give good arguments. When they hear claims, they need to hear those good arguments before they're going to accept it as true. Okay, and bad critical thinkers would be just in the opposite category. The sort of people who, number one, believe things for not very good reasons or no good reason at all. So people that'll believe claims even if there's no good argument or evidence to back it up. And also a bad critical thinker doesn't have the good ability to make solid arguments defending the things they believe. So they make claims, sure, they a lot of times are very bold even and assertive in their claims, but if questioned about it and it's a bad critical thinker, they're not going to be able to give you much in the way of a good argument to back it up. So we want to be better critical thinkers and make progress towards that status. We talked about examples that people could generate of either category, either types of people or particular individuals. Okay, now she's getting up on the keyboard. I'm sorry to say, but I'm going to let her go in the other room for just a minute. Okay, so hey, Peachy, say goodbye. We'll see her in a minute. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. She's cute, but the show goes on. So anyway, then it comes to the topic of what is an argument. So good critical thinkers are skilled in evaluating the quality of an argument and expecting there to be a good argument before they believe things. They can also present good arguments. So we wanted to be very clear about what in the technical, logical sense is an argument, not in the informal, everyday way of talking about it, but like, what is an argument considered to be within the realm of logic and reasoning? So an argument is a set of, who could tell me actually, how many sentences minimum does there have to be in an argument? It's a certain number or more of sentences. So every argument contains at least how many sentences in it? 2 or more, exactly, good Flavio. So 2 or more, and that's because in every argument, one statement in the argument, the bottom statement, the bottom line of the argument, one of that sentence is considered to be or called what? So one part of the argument, the last statement at the bottom, what is that called again? The conclusion. Very good, Andrew and others. So the conclusion of the argument is the final statement, and then the other sentences within the argument that are above the conclusion are called premises, exactly. So let's just remind ourselves about what those two things are. The conclusion of the argument is the claim or the statement that you're trying to prove to be true to some person or to some audience, or maybe just even to yourself. So you're trying to demonstrate that that conclusion is true, and the premises serve as the support, the reasons that give backing to the conclusion. Okay, so we talked about how in the formal sense defined here, it's not possible for there to be an argument if it's merely just one sentence alone. So if I told you, I don't know, Trump will win re-election or something, or Biden will win re-election, if I just offered you one of those assertions, that would not be an argument by itself, but it could be the conclusion of a logical argument if there were some premises that were given as support for the conclusion. So someone could say, I don't know, the coronavirus pandemic has shown a failure of leadership, which Trump has presided over, therefore he'll lose the election. Or someone could say, I don't know, the failed criminal justice bill of the 90s that resulted in a lot of mass incarceration is a poor mark on Biden's record, therefore he'll lose the election. I don't know. I don't say whether I agree or don't with either argument, but there are arguments that are out there. We hear them, and if they're considered arguments, there's got to be some premises. Okay, next. I talked to you guys about the standard format that our argument is displayed in, okay? And the standard form, I'll just put an example here. You have the conclusion at the bottom. A horizontal line then separates it from the premises that are listed above. So, no woman has walked on the moon. I don't know, talking politics, so I'll just go with a well-known female. Hillary Clinton is a woman. So just to sort of check in with your logical reasoning, this argument, as silly as it is, what would be the conclusion that you could draw here? No woman has walked on the moon, and then Hillary Clinton is a woman, and therefore she has not walked on the moon. Yeah. Okay, so that's just, I'm just giving this argument not because I want us to like consider in any depth the actual content of it, but rather just to show the form and the format. As you see it displayed here, this is our conclusion of the argument. And the premises are numbered and listed here above this line. The line is the divider between the premises and the conclusion, so you can see visually what they are. Okay, we also just talked about the term truth. So the whole point of making these arguments amongst each other is to make a case that the conclusion is true, to try and establish that that's a true statement at the bottom. Now, therefore, we have to ask the question, what does truth really mean? And we talked about that. So truth, the concept of truth, truth exists when what? What does it take for a sentence to be true? A sentence is true under what condition? Like any sentence that is spoken or written would count as true when it matches the facts of reality. Exactly. So truth is about what's real. And a sentence can correspond to the real facts and correctly state what they are, or it can not do so. So a true sentence is one that reports on the facts accurately, that says something that's actually happening in factual reality. So if I told you I'm wearing a green Lacoste, that's true. That's a fact. If I told you I was wearing like a, I don't know, a pink blazer right now, that would be false. That's just not the case. So a statement either matches up with reality or it does not. And if it does, it is true. That's the definition of truth. So there's like infinitely many true statements. I have 2 cats. Long Beach is inside of California. No woman has walked on the moon. There's never been a female president. I don't know. Canada is to our north. So on and on and on. All the statements that I'm making are true, but the opposite of them would be false, right? Like many women have walked on the moon. Canada's to the south of us. I'm not wearing glasses, right? Those are all false statements. So when we take a class like this and in our everyday lives, we're really trying our best to just get true beliefs in our mind. We don't want to believe false things because that just means we're getting things wrong or we're incorrect. You know, like if you had a multiple choice quiz and they said, what year was the Declaration of Independence signed? And you filled in the bubble 1850. Why did you get the answer wrong? Because that's not true. It's not true that it was done in 1850, but rather 1776. So you only get credit for having knowledge when your beliefs are true. Of course, we don't know in every single case what the facts are, but we do our best, and logic and critical thinking help to get us to the truth in most cases, or at least the best we can do. We also, I think, talked briefly about the word belief, kind of close to the last part of meeting last time. Who can remind me the term belief and what it means? So truth is when a statement matches reality, right? What does it mean to believe a sentence? Like, do you believe that I'm wearing glasses? The sentence, Dr. Vulich is wearing glasses, do you believe that? Well, what does it mean then? If you do, what does it mean to believe a sentence? A person believes a sentence under what condition? What's the requirement for a person to believe a statement? Maybe you'll tell me. Maybe I didn't create a note that's clear enough in your memory, and if not, then I'll just put it up on the board now. We'll add it to the notes. But I know we talked about it at least. Thinks that a sentence is true. Exactly, Megan. Yeah. Job, it's truthfulness. It's related to that. It's just when you think that. It's not lost on us. Belief. When a person thinks that a sentence is true. So when you think a statement is a fact, you agree with it, that means you believe it. The interesting thing about beliefs, well, you say to see it personally. Seeing is believing, as they say, right? So if you see me with glasses, of course you believe that I'm wearing them. But if I had like texted somebody, hey, I just put on these glasses, they're awesome, they would probably come to believe it just based on the reading of the text. So there's a lot of ways to arrive at a belief. Like some people don't have vision, right? And so like a blind person would have to go off of auditory cues or written words that they hear or whatever, sound, smells, and the other senses. So in whatever way a person ascertains the facts, you believe a statement when you think that it's a reflection of reality. Okay, so like the world is a globe. No one should disagree with that. But of course, there are some misinformed people in the Flat Earth Society that would say, oh, it's a flat disk, and we're all being, I don't know, this is like a global conspiracy to trick us about the shape of the planet. Why would that be important to anybody? I don't know. But besides that example, yeah, like some people might think that it's flat. That's their belief. But of course, the vast majority, based on overwhelming evidence, will believe, no, it's a globe. Now, these are two different beliefs. The proposition, the Earth is a sphere, is taken to be true by the one side and not true by the other side. So they don't both believe that. One individual does believe it, and the other person says, I don't believe that. But though they have their different beliefs, because that's subjective, what you believe is just up to you, the facts, though, are objective. It's not that there's two different shapes of the same planet, so it's both a sphere and a disk. There's one planet, and there's one shape that it actually has. So one person's belief is true and the other is false. With beliefs, we can divide and have separate opinions. One person can believe, I don't know, that God exists, like a Christian or a Jew or Muslim, any religious practitioner. Another person could be a skeptic and say the statement God exists, I don't think it's true. And that person is not a believer in the statement that God exists. So belief is something that each individual can judge on their own. But you try to judge in a way that gets the correct answer and the truth. So belief is not the same as facts. Facts are independent of the mind. Like the moon exists, and it didn't start existing just because we started to believe that it did. And even if, let's say, tragically, I don't know, life was wiped out on the planet tomorrow, the moon would still be existing, and there'd be nobody to believe in its existence at that point. So the facts of the world just are what they are. And we arrive on the scene, we're born into this world, and we form beliefs about what's there, what's not there, what's true and false. A class like this helps you to equip yourself to come to arrive at true beliefs, at least more often than not. Okay, last thing I want to review from previous meeting, and then we'll jump ahead in our notes. If the moon was blown up in like a supernova event or something, or some other cosmic catastrophe, then sure, that'd be a different case. Let's say if a virus or something killed off humanity and it had nothing to do with the orbit of the moon or the circumstances of the moon. But anyway, those are hypotheticals. So we talked about some conclusion and premise indicator words. I think that's the last main thing from last class meeting. So there are certain words that indicate that you're now going to hear the conclusion of a logical argument. And we call those conclusion indicator words. Maybe some of you can remember a few of those. So like, for example, no woman has walked on the moon. Hillary Clinton is a woman. And then blank, Hillary Clinton has not walked on the moon. What would be in the position of that blank? Okay, so therefore is definitely a good option. Therefore is a classic conclusion indicator word. There's also thus, hence, so. Joe, we got to correct on that. It's not the term because. Because is actually one of the premise indicator words that I'm going to go over in a moment, or remind you about in a moment. Also, Lena, due to the fact that is another premise indicator word. So let's keep due to the fact that and because in a separate cue in your mind. Because those are words that indicate I'm telling you the evidence for a conclusion. But when you get to the conclusion, it's like the summary statement. It's the bottom line of the argument where you're concluding. So you're not going to continue adding because and because and because. Now you're at the end. So you say therefore, or thus, or so, or consequently, or even ergo, exactly. As a result is also a fine example. Then, as some of us have just noticed, there are premise indicator words. The premise indicator words fulfill the role of telling you you're now going to hear one of the evidence statements in an argument. And those are words like because, or since, or given that, or due to the fact that, or even just insofar as, right? Stuff like that. So because no woman has walked on the moon, and since Hillary Clinton is a woman, it follows that, consequently, she has not walked on the moon. Okay. Cool. So what I'm going to do next is I want to talk to you guys a little bit about different types of sentences, and then I want to talk to you about the two main types of arguments that there are in logic. Okay? So this is just a little quick lesson in some stuff about features of our language. There are different types of sentences that exist, and we want to clearly be able to distinguish the different kinds. So first of all, the main kind of sentence that is of primary interest to us and to logic is what's called an assertoric sentence. Okay, so I'm going to put up here the heading, 4 types of sentences. Sentences are the building blocks of arguments, and so they're like the rudimentary elements of logic. Therefore, we want to be clear about what types of sentences there are. And there's really 4 main kinds. So the first is what's called assertoric sentence. So an assertoric sentence is based on the root meaning assertion. And the nature of an assertoric sentence is that in every case of an assertoric sentence, it's a statement that is either true or false. As we sometimes say, a little more fancy way of saying it, any sentence that has a truth value. To have a truth value is to be a statement that is one of the 2 cases, true or false. Never both, but one of those 2. So that's an assertoric sentence. A sentence that is either true or false. Okay, now I'm going to put a little asterisk here because the assertoric sentence is the most important for our purposes in this class. in everyday life, we make heavy use of all four kinds. But for the purposes of logic, we are concerned chiefly with this one because these are the only kind of sentences that can fill the role of a premise or a conclusion in a logical argument. So every statement in an argument, whether it's a premise or a conclusion, is of the assertoric kind. It's an assertion. It's a claim that can be determined or judged anyway as true or false. Now, so like examples. Sacramento is the capital of California. That's an assertoric sentence, and that is one that is true, because that's just the case. If I say to you, Los Angeles is the capital of California, that's also an assertoric sentence, okay, but it's false. So whether it's true or false, it's still an assertoric sentence, because it has a truth value, okay? Now, in lots of cases, in some cases, we deal with assertoric sentences, but we don't actually know the truth value. But even if we don't know yet, or maybe ever, what the truth value actually is, as long as it has one, it's still an assertoric sentence. So let me see if you can follow me here. Suppose that I tell you aliens exist in outer space. Is that an assertoric sentence? That's a basic question. Is the statement that there is extraterrestrial life, is that an assertoric sentence? Okay, let's see what we come up with. It is, in fact, yes, it is. So, Shireen, I know your first instinct was to say no, but not to worry, I'll explain that. It's an assertoric sentence. So to you guys saying yes, which is the correct answer, why are you saying that that's the right answer? What is it about the sentence that there's extraterrestrial life that does qualify it as an assertoric sentence? Now, it might take a moment. Yeah, the truth, it does have value. That maybe we don't know what the truth value is. But it's one of those two, and it cannot be both. So any statement that has a truth value has exactly one of the two, and it can be both. Like, I was born in the 80s. That's just a true fact about me. But it cannot also be false that I was born in the 80s at the same time. It's one or the other. It's either true or false, but never both. With the case of aliens exist out there, it's something that is right now either true or false. But I just don't know, and neither do you, which one it is. If somewhere far out there in this big universe, there are living life forms that are not on the planet Earth, then it's true. And if that's not the case, and there's no such thing, then it's false. We maybe won't ever find out, or maybe we will, but whether we do or not, we can say for now that it's definitely an assertion, because it's something that has a truth value, even if we're not in a position to tell which one. Now, lots of sentences, we can definitely verify that they're true. Like I'm telling you I'm wearing glasses, and you don't have to take my word for it or just guess. You can see it. But there's all kinds of assertions that we will have to just speculate over their truth value. Nonetheless, we know that they do have one or not. Like, I don't know, was JFK assassinated by, what's his name, Lee Harvey Oswald? I mean, that's, of course, the official account. Some people are, like, you know, into conspiracy theories, and they say, I'm not sure, did CIA have a hand or whatever? Not endorsing those views. But basically, the statement that he was killed by Oswald is still an assertion because it's either true or false. The going, you know, I would say consensus is that it's true. But you'll have a minority of believers that will say, I don't think that's the case. Either way, though, even if it's unknown, it's still an assertion. Okay? Cool. So let's see. I think no one has any further thoughts on that. So I'm going to add to the list of types of sentences. We got more. So the next kind are what are called interrogatives. So what is an interrogative sentence? Okay, well, as you can maybe hint from the label itself, which has the root interrogate built into it, interrogatives are just questions of any kind whatsoever. So that's all, questions. So any sentence that basically ends with a question mark is an interrogative. And that covers a huge variety of sentences. What time is it? Where is the bathroom? What is your favorite food? You know, when is the final? any of these sentences are interrogatives. And that's because they are questions. Now notice that an interrogative is not an assertion. When a question is asked, no claim has been made. And so they don't have a truth value. If I ask you, what time is it? You cannot reply, at least you can't coherently reply by saying true. And that's the giveaway, that it's not an assertion. With an assertion, a person could judge the statement to be true or false. But with an interrogative, no claim has been made, instead a question has been asked. So you name it, anything with a question mark at the tail end is definitely an interrogative sentence. Now, of course, those are very important for just navigating our everyday lives. We have to sometimes ask for information that we don't have so that we know how to respond and how to act. But in logic anyway, where we were primarily focused on argumentation, we were really only dealing with assertions, but I mention it so you see the contrast. So that's another kind of sentence, are the interrogatives. A third kind is the imperative. So an imperative sentence is just a command of any kind. So that's what those are, commands. Okay, so commands fulfill a slightly different role, which is, directing a person's action or behavior. So if I say to you, write this down, or take out your book, or someone says, take out the trash, open the door, open the window, be quiet, whatever, that's kind of rude, but in any of these cases, they're imperative statements. They try to compel a person to do a certain action or to respond to the directive that's given. And also imperatives, like interrogatives, do not have a truth value. We need to use them to organize the behavior of people in everyday life and in society, so they're hugely important to our daily affairs, but they're not assertions, so they don't populate premises and conclusions of arguments. So, like if someone says, for example, take out the trash, you can do it or not do it, but you can't say false, because it's not a claim of truth or falsehood. It's a directive given to you. So we can tell when we're hearing a command because it comes built in to some kind of request for action or agency from a person. Okay, and then finally, there are exclamations. Those are kind of a little different. They're basically momentary expressions of a person's feeling or attitude. Okay, so it says they're momentary expression of feelings or attitudes. That's the exclamation. And so these are usually, they end with an exclamation point, and they kind of just indicate the speaker's state of mind or feeling or psychological state at that time. So think of examples like if someone's up there on stage giving a speech and someone didn't like what they were saying and they started going boo, boo, right? Boo is just to kind of express that this person is having a negative reaction that they disapprove of or that they dislike the content of the speech. But that by itself is not a question, it's not a command, and it's not making any literal claim. You can't hear the person going boo and be like, that's false, because it's just their feeling that they're expressing. On the other hand, it could be hooray, yay, rah, 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 that kind of stuff. And that expresses approval, satisfaction, excitement towards something, but it's also something that cannot be interpreted as a literal assertion of a specific kind. Oh my God, or whoa, yay, all these different kinds of statements can serve the role of an exclamation. And notice that a lot of the exclamations are not actually full subject predicate sentences in the grammatical sense. A lot of times it's just a single word or phrase followed by an exclamation point, which reveals a person's psychological state at that time. Okay, so I just mentioned these different types of sentences for you guys. Radical, yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe there's a hidden assertion within that particular exclamation, like the claim is being made, the individual who speaks or you, whoever I'm addressing myself to, are radical, or you're on the margins of public opinion, whatever. But yeah, stated as such, it would just be an exclamation. Okay, so anyway, yeah, reminding ourselves, we're focusing on arguments throughout this class, and the assertoric statements are the kind that fill the premises and conclusions within arguments. But in an everyday circumstance, we use all of them freely, and it's something that we've done throughout our whole lives. Now we're just learning the vocabulary that is associated with it. Okay, so Jocelyn, question. Could it be considered an opinion? Yes, it can be an opinion, or it could be something that is indisputable, like 2 + 2 is 4. It could also be something like, yeah, that people disagree about. It could be something like we should have a socialized healthcare system to cover costs for low-income individuals. Another person could say, no, we should not. So it can be the expression of an opinion, as long as it's something that the person considers to be a true opinion, then they can assert it as such. If I have an opinion that vanilla is the best ice cream, that's an assertion. Vanilla is the best ice cream. It's either true or false. Maybe we can say that there's no fact of the matter when it comes to matters of taste. But I don't want to confuse you too much. As long as it's not a question, as long as it's not a command, it could be a person stating their view on something. It could be them just reporting on like some fact about the world. As long as it's an assertion that has the possibility of being true or false, it's in that category. So that's a good question. Thanks. All right, so where we're going next is I kind of want to talk about the 2 main types of logical argument and reasoning that we have in logic. So there's 2 major forms of reasoning and 2 types of argument, and that's deduction and versus, on the other hand, induction. So now we're going to learn a little bit about the differences between deductive reasoning. Okay. Okay, so what I'm writing is 2 types of argument / reasoning. Because there's inductive arguments and deductive arguments, and there's inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So the divide here is between deduction and, on the other hand, induction. Okay, deduction versus induction. Just kind of make sure the N is clear enough there. So first off, I'm going to go over all the material and stuff having to do with deduction. All right, and then we'll switch gears and talk about the inductive side of this divider. Okay, so having written these notes, I'm going to just erase, and we're going to talk about deduction. We'll zoom over to induction after that. Okay. So what is a deductive argument? Okay, so a good deductive argument is what is considered and termed deductively valid. Okay, so we're going to start talking about deduction by mentioning and understanding the concept of deductive validity. Okay. Okay, deductively valid argument. This is a key definition and concept. So really let's zero in on this and try and make sure that it gets set down in our minds clearly. So a deductively valid argument is an argument where if the premises are all true, if they're all true, then the conclusion has to be true as well. It must be. Okay, so I'll write it down. If the premises are all true, then the conclusion must also be true. There you see, that's the definition of a deductively valid argument. I'll type it into the chat just to have two ways to view it. So, okay. Yeah, so there you see, that's the definition. It's an argument where it is an argument such that if all of its premises are in fact true, then the conclusion must be true as well. So allow me to now erase this. You have the note in the chat. And I'm going to try and display some examples of the deductively valid arguments. Yeah. All right. So take a look at this. All dogs are mammals. A Labrador is a dog. Labradors are dogs. So what will you deduce? Let's engage in a bit of elementary deduction. Very easy one, I think. So all dogs are mammals. Labradors are dogs. So what follows? What can we conclude? What can we deduce from these two premises? You see, the conclusion just sort of follows from them that a Labrador is a mammal. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now, is this a valid argument? Yes, yes it is. And very good, we've got the right conclusion. Now, why is it a valid argument? Well, it is because if these two statements are true, if they're true, then this has to be true. Because these two statements being true implies that this is true. Okay, so in other words, it is not possible for every dog to be a mammal and also for Labradors to be dogs, but for somehow Labradors to not be mammals. That would not be possible. We can demonstrate how it's impossible for this to be false if these are true, or if you like, how this must be true in case these both are true. We can visually display that through the use of Venn diagrams, which are sometimes used in these type of basic logic classes. So let me show you how that's done. Here, this circle, let us assume that this denotes the set of all mammals. So I'm going to label it with letter M, because M is for mammal. Mammals, by the way, warm-blooded vertebrates that typically give live birth, except for the platypus, whatever. But forget that, mammals. Now, if all dogs are mammals, as premise 1 claims, then how can I draw a circle indicating the letter D, which stands for the set of all dogs? Where shall I place this D circle in relation to this M circle to indicate that all dogs are mammals? Let's see if anyone can just quickly tell me how to construct that diagram, which once again I'm saying will show us that in the diagram all dogs, 100% of them, are mammals. We should draw a circle, label it D, and place it where? Inside the mammal circle, that's exactly right. Yes, thank you, Alondra and Hannah, that's correct. Why? Well, because this circle now, labeled D, represents the set of all dogs. So every dog is inside of this set, including every species and breed of dog. Why is it fully subcontained within M? That's to show that all dogs are mammals. Now, if most dogs were mammals, then this would be mostly within M, but a little part outside of that sphere to show the case of a few dogs that are not mammals, but every dog's a mammal. So D is fully contained within M. Now, I will draw one more circle, which will be to represent Labradors, and it'll be labeled L. Where shall I put this L circle? Because premise 2 says that Labradors are dogs. So that should give it away, right? Where shall I put this L circle on our little diagram? The L circle is going to stand for Labradors. And wherever I place it should show us visually that they're all dogs. So where does L go at? It goes inside of the D circle, that's right. So, this is the subset of dogs that are Labradors. Over here you got Chihuahuas, Cocker Spaniels, and every other breed to round out or portion of it. Not all dogs are Labradors. That's why the L circle is smaller than the D one. Now, does this diagram show us that the argument is valid? Yes, because what it shows you is that if all dogs are mammals and Labradors are dogs, Labradors are mammals because L fits within the larger concentric circle of M. There's no way that L, if it's fully contained within D, which is fully contained within M, can somehow have membership that is outside of the entire set here. So that is one case of a deductively valid argument, and it's easy to see why. Now, deductively valid arguments can have indefinite variety. There could be any number of possibilities. If I have 2 apples in my lunch bag and 2 oranges in my lunch bag, then it follows, therefore, that I have at least 4 fruits in the bag, right? Because having 2 oranges and 2 apples logically guarantees that there's at least 4 fruits. If there are 2 oranges and 2 apples, it's not possible for there to be a smaller number of fruits than 4 in that hypothetical example. So deductive reasoning is reasoning which is truth preserving, because as long as you competently deduce the conclusion from the premises, it guarantees that you'll never move from true premises to a false conclusion. So you're always going to be guaranteed that as long as you started with true assumptions and you reasoned deductively in a valid way, then the conclusion that you derive will also have to be true. Okay, let me give one more example. We can work with, let's see. Okay. Okay, so no president has walked on the moon. We'll just go with the current president. Trump is the president. So, what would be the conclusion here? No president has walked on the moon. Not once. Furthermore, Trump is the president. And so therefore, good, Alexis, getting it right away. Therefore, Trump has not walked on the moon. Okay, once again, it's a deductively valid argument. It's definitely a valid argument because assuming these premises are true, and in fact they are, but just assuming they are, whether you knew so or not, this would be a logical consequence that deductively follows from these 2 premises. And once again, a graph can be demonstrated to show that. So here we have all the people that have ever walked on the moon. So these are the moonwalking people: Buzz Aldrin, Lance, or I don't even know, there's been a few others. I'm not so familiar with my names about the history of NASA, but I know Aldrin's one of them. Anyway, these are people who've walked on the moon. Now, I'm going to draw another circle that stands for the presidents of the United States. I'm going to label it P. Where should I draw this circle of P in relationship to M if I want to showcase that there's never been a president that's walked on the moon? This circle labeled P, where shall it stand? It shall stand outside the M circle, exactly, completely outside. Why is that? Well, Because it says no president has walked on the moon. So these are non-overlapping sets. Like there's no area where the two sets intersect, because if there were, then there would be like a small portion of some presidents who've walked on the moon. But in fact, that's never happened. The people who've walked on the moon have never been president, and the people who've been president have never walked on the moon. So this shows you that they're disjoint sets. Now, the second premise says Trump is president. So this should be easy for us. That means that he will fall within the set P. That's Trump, Lincoln, Obama, a whole bunch of others are all in that same circle, but we're just denoting the one president here. So doesn't it follow that Trump has not walked on the moon? Yes, because if he had, he would have to be over in this circle. But every member of P is not a member of M, so it logically follows. Now, with these few examples, I'm just trying to give you a basic sense of how deductive reasoning works. If you were like an investigator or something, you might be using such reasoning in the course of your investigations. Like the murderer had a type O blood because we collected crime scene forensic evidence, and their blood was at the crime scene. So they have type O negative blood. Jones has been brought in for questioning, but we ruled him out because he has, I don't even know what another blood type is, but it's not type O. So since the killer has type O and he doesn't have it, he can't be the killer. Do we need to know how to make these circle diagrams for tests? No, 100% no, you don't. I'm just doing it so that you learn something about it, but I'm not going to ever ask you to draw these diagrams. Nonetheless, if you could draw it, you'd be likelier to understand the material in a way that would make you competent at filling out the questions that I will ask. But no, do not worry about these diagrams. You'll see some of them in the textbook too when you read chapter 8, and they're just useful aids for your learning. But the real questions I'll ask you will have more to do with like writing out an answer. Like, tell me what's a deductively valid argument, and then you'll say an argument where it's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false, or it's an argument where if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be true as well. I might say, give me an example of a deductively valid argument, and then you'll generate one based on your knowledge of it and your notes. Okay? So yeah, I want to then go on and talk to you guys about another concept within deduction, and then we'll move on to induction, okay? So one more important term to know is called soundness. What does it mean for an argument to be sound? Okay. So here we go. So for an argument to be what is called sound, it has to have two features. First of all, number one, it has to be valid. It has to be deductively valid. So it's an argument that's deductively valid, but with something extra. Deductively valid plus the premises are all actually true in the real world. Okay, so a deductively valid argument with all true premises. So that is what it is for an argument to be a sound argument. A valid argument where all the premises are true. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the chat, and then I'm going to erase that note so I can display two different arguments side by side, and that'll help us understand the difference between when an argument's sound and when it's not sound. Okay, so here we go. So here we go. Every president has walked on the moon. We'll stick with the just noted example. Trump is the president. Okay, and then we're ready to get to the conclusion. So you see here, it says every president has walked on the moon. Every single president has walked on the moon. Trump is the president, and I see already, Adeline, you're getting the conclusion. So I would ask you guys to look at the comment, but that's right. The conclusion is that Trump has walked on the moon. So imagine that. But anyway. Now, I want you to think about this. Think carefully when you give me your answer. Oh, it's not really that hard, but we'll think about it. Tell me, is that a valid argument? Or that's all I'm asking. Is it a valid argument or is it invalid? So Job, you're saying no. Clarissa's saying no. Araceli is saying yes, that it is valid. Okay, wait for a few more responses before I spoil it for you. Jasmine's saying no. Matthew, yes. Interesting that it's almost a half and half split, but it seems like some are saying no. Well, let me just tell you, okay? It's valid. It is valid. This is a valid argument. But to those saying no, I think what your intuition is about the other thing I just mentioned. It's valid. It's valid just because of the format. Because if these two premises are true, it's an if they were true, then this would logically have to be true as well. Just because of the set containment relations. Like, you know, if every president has walked on the moon and Trump is a member of the class of presidents, since every president has walked on the moon, so has he. Just logically that follows. It's valid, but it's not what? Now you can fill in the blank to my new question. It's valid, but it is not, what do you think? Yes, it's not sound, exactly, Job and Hannah. It's valid, it has the correct form, but it's not sound. And what's throwing off the soundness? Consider the definition of soundness again, and just tell me why it's not sound. Because you're right, it's not sound, but what is throwing it off from being sound? There's a reason, and we should be able to just be precise, saying what part of this argument is making it not sound. Why isn't it sound? It's not sound because, why? Because it has at least one false premise, exactly. So for an argument to be sound, it has to be valid, but every premise also has to be like a real, true fact. So in this case, the validity is there, but the first premise is clearly false. The first premise says every president has walked on the moon. Now, is that true? No, it's not true. No president has walked on the moon. So it's valid, but it's not sound. Let me make sure that we're clear as to why it's valid. Because if every president has walked on the moon, as premise one is indicated, they're saying, then here are the moonwalking people. Here are the presidents. All of them have walked on the moon. And then here's Trump, one of the presidents. Based on the two premises, if we just assume that they are true, if we granted that these were true, then this consequence would logically follow from them. But, of course, the first premise is not true, and that's why it fails to be sound. Okay? Now, what about the other argument that I gave? I'll display it again by just making a quick edit to this. So now I've returned it to the other example. No president has walked on the moon. Trump is the president, and therefore Trump has not walked on the moon. Let's ask, what's the status of this argument? What kind of argument is this? This one. The one beginning with no president has walked on the moon, continuing by saying Trump is president, and then concluding, therefore, he has not walked on the moon. In this example, unlike the one just mentioned where we said every president has walked on the moon, tell me, what's the status of this one? The term, it is sound. It is sound, yes. It's valid and it's sound because It's logical. This conclusion does logically follow from the premises. It's not possible for this conclusion to be false if these are both true. But unlike the other example, the premises are all in fact true because no president has walked on the moon and Trump is president. Okay? So understand that there can be arguments that are valid but that are not sound. They're valid merely on the basis of the information content of the premises and whether or not that logically leads to the conclusion. Even if the premises are weird and out of touch with reality, as long as the consequence is a logical byproduct of them, that counts as valid. Soundness is an extra feature when the validity is also backed by all the premises really being true. So like here, one more quick example. All dogs can fly. Labradors are dogs. So therefore, what's to be deduced in this current example? All dogs can fly. Airbud, exactly, yes. Labradors are dogs. So, Labradors can fly. Yes, that's our conclusion. And just to see that your comprehension is there, let's hear it. What kind of argument is that again? This type of argument that we see on the board is known as a what argument? It's valid, yes, but it is not sound. Exactly. Why isn't it sound? Because of the false first premise. Okay? So now, in everyday life, we make arguments all the time, sometimes deductive, sometimes inductive, which we're going to speak about in a minute. Why aren't all of the arguments sound? Well, it's because we're not always 100% clear as to what the facts are. So, we're not omniscient gods that can just say, here's the truths. But what we can do is say, well, here's something that follows from the assertion of these statements, and then leave it to people to make their own judgment as to whether our arguments are sound or not, right? So if somebody says, I don't know, video games, first-person shooter games cause people to kill, and the shooter was an avid gamer of those types, therefore he killed. I don't know. It could be considered a valid argument just based on what the premises say, but if you disagree with the premise or either premise, then you can say, well, the argument's not sound. But if I grant you your premises, then the conclusion at least does logically follow. So in the ideal case, all of our arguments would be valid and sound. But short of that, what we can make sure to do is to present valid arguments, and then the soundness, the truth or falsehood of the premises can be debated amongst us and our friends and colleagues with whom we engage in debate and discussion. Okay? So we have to have the concept of soundness to go together with validity. When you evaluate validity, you're not even really thinking about whether the statements here are true or not. You're just asking, does the logical conclusion follow from them, just formally? When you're evaluating the soundness of an argument, though, that's when you will compare the claims of the premises to the real world. And then, if any of the premises are false, you would call that out. And you would say, I understand your reasoning is valid, but you're relying on false assumptions. So even though your conclusion follows from your assumptions, not all the assumptions are true, right? So that's just about validity and soundness. We're going to definitely cover those topics again as we continue, but that's our first big exposure to that major idea in logic. So try and set it down clearly in your mind. When you read chapter 8, the pages that are designated for the next few meetings, carefully study the material on validity and soundness, and it'll back up this lecture we just are having. Okay, but there's a little more. I want to speak about induction for a moment. So here we go. Okay, so the other major type of reasoning and argument that exists is what's called inductive reasoning. And within the realm of inductive reasoning, we say that a good argument is not classified as deductively valid, but the term is instead inductively strong. Okay, so what is it for an argument to be inductively strong? Let me say. So it starts off the same way of defining it. If the premises are all true, but then there's something different after that. So first of all, if the premises are all true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true, but not must be. So instead of must, it's probable. So the conclusion is okay. So if the premises are all true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be as well, but it can't be absolutely guaranteed. So with inductive reasoning, a lot of times we generate inductive arguments by thinking about patterns that have held over time that we've observed, and then we make the inference that that pattern is going to continue to hold in the next case. So a lot of times we have to rely on induction because we have to go with what we think will probably go down or what will probably happen. But unlike deduction, it's not an ironclad guarantee. So if I told you deductively, I have 2 oranges in my bag and 2 apples, so therefore I have at least 4 fruits. That conclusion must be true if the premises are, because 2 apples and 2 oranges amounts to 4, so it can't be that it's less. But if I say, let me give you a different example now of an inductive argument. So you see the definition here. I'm going to erase and give you some examples. Okay, so this is like a classic textbook example of an inductive argument that a lot of times I've seen used, so I'm going to pass it on to you. Let's take a look at this. I'm just going to make it a one premise argument to kind of simplify. But say we have this info, the sun. The sun has come up every morning for billions of years, given the age of the Earth. So, okay, so jumping to the conclusion now, what do you think would be a pretty fair, safe conclusion to draw from this premise that the sun has come up every single morning for billions of years? Therefore, a person may conclude that the sunrise exists isn't exactly what I'm going for. It's more about the kind of idea of predicting another case. Right, so good. Hannah, Joe, Alex, and others. Actually, Alex, I would rather say it this way, that it'll come up tomorrow. That it will continue to rise is indefinitely stated. For how long? For months, years? Let's at least say one more day is a safe bet, right? So therefore, the sun will rise tomorrow. Now, take a look at that argument. Do you think the sun will rise tomorrow? Probably you do. I mean, be a little sad to even be doing anything and think that it won't. But surely we think that the sun will rise tomorrow, but based on what? Well, it's not just a guess, it's not just a hunch. It's because that's the pattern that's been going on this planet for as long back as recorded history can possibly establish. So it's been rising for billions of years. Therefore, it will rise tomorrow. Probably it will, with a high degree of probability, with a high likelihood. Something that's already happened billions of times one type of way. It seems unlikely that that's just going to shift and stop or discontinue in the next case. So we got really good reason and good track record to show that this is probably going to be true. But can we say with 100% total certainty that it's true? Unfortunately not. I mean, the universe being what it is, it's not theoretically impossible for the sun to explode, as it eventually will when it exhausts all of its fuel. And then when it supernovas, it will engulf the local cosmos. and it certainly wouldn't rise at that point. Or, I don't know, maybe some kind of really large intervening asteroid could destroy our local solar system. But at any rate, we think it won't happen that way. And we have probably very good evidence that gives us 99.999, push the decimals way out there and expand that. We have a high likelihood that it's going to continue this way, but it's not absolutely certain. So induction leads us to conclusions that are highly likely to be true based on the premises. Deduction leads us to conclusions that must be true if the premises are, right? So like if I'm 5'10", and John is 5'5", therefore I am taller than John. What kind of argument is that? Is that deductive or inductive? The one about height that I just spoke. I'm 5'10", John is 5'5", therefore I am taller than John. Is this deductive or inductive? That's deductive because it's just dealing with numbers. And as long as 5'10" is a bigger number than 5'5", then given those two premises, the conclusion has to be true. But how about this? My neighbors walk their dog Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. for the past 3 years. Tomorrow is Friday, so tomorrow at 9 a.m. they'll walk that dog. That's what kind of argument? Now I hope you can tell me it's setting you up. That's inductive. Can we say with 100% total certainty that that conclusion will turn out true? No, because anything can happen to stop that pattern from continuing on. But nonetheless, it's got some evidence behind it that we can go off of. So it's likelier than not. Okay, so that would be inductive. Every president of the United States throughout United States history has been a man. So therefore, the next president, say 2024, will be a man. Would that be deductive or inductive? Every president's been a man, so next election, it'll be a man as well. That would be inductive, correct, because it's possible for that pattern to break. It's been a couple of 100 years, but certainly Hillary Clinton was very close, and there's a lot of other candidates that were pretty viable, I would say. So induction allows for the pattern to break, but we have to rely on regular established patterns to make judgments about what's likely to go on in the future. So we do use induction all the time, every day. Scientists use it, everyday people use it, and it's kind of paired together with deduction, the two main forms of reasoning. Now, Larissa, your question. Inductive is not 100% true. Okay, so the question I think you want to ask is the conclusion of the inductive argument 100% likely to be true? No. It's some number of probability that's less than 100. It has to be just highly likely based on evidence. No, if it was 100% certain based on the evidence, then that would be deductive rather than inductive. So that's the dividing line. If the conclusion is logically guaranteed by the true premises, then it's a deductively valid argument. Otherwise, it's induction. When you get into your car, right, if you drive, and you turn the key, what do you expect to happen? The engine will start. And probably you expect that because maybe never in your whole life have you had a failure of the engine to start. So if you say to yourself, I've been driving for 5 years, my car has always turned on, so when I turn it on tomorrow morning, the engine will start. That would be inductive reasoning, but of course, things can happen with the mechanics of the car randomly that would cause it to misfire and not start. You drive on the freeway. Maybe there's a certain traffic time where you know that there's a high volume of traffic. So you're like, every time that I leave my house at 9 a.m. to go to work, I hit traffic for the past like 3 or 4 or 5 years that I've been driving. So if I leave tomorrow at 9, I'm going to hit traffic. That's probably true. But what if, for some reason there's different types of road conditions that expedited your arrival in a way you didn't expect? I've never been shot in my whole life. Hopefully that continues. And having lived this long, I think it's probably safe to say that today won't be that day if it ever does happen. But you never know, obviously, living in the world that we live in and the times we do. So when we use induction, we have reasonable conclusions that are probable based on the premise evidence. But they're not ironclad, just watertight guarantees. They're some level less than 100%. I'll just give you, another random one to kind of multiply the examples for you. The student has had perfect attendance all the way K through 12. This is just one of those people obsessed with perfect attendance. Tomorrow is Monday of the last full week of high school, 12th grade, senior year. The person with perfect attendance, the student reasons, will be present on Monday. Probably they will, but who knows? Maybe some unexpected illness, injury, or other event could have made it such that they finally missed the day. I'm very good with being present and available for the lectures. I haven't missed one lecture at Cal State Fullerton for, it's been like 6 years or something crazy. So I'm just always there. So I feel like I'm healthy and reliable. Probably then, based on that evidence, you could say, well, Vulic he is going to be present at the Wednesday lecture, which I would say is probably something you could safely bet on. But who knows if something weird happened or really unlikely. Maybe it would change that conclusion from being true to false. So there can be inductively weak arguments, and there can be deductively invalid arguments. So I think when I begin on the next lecture, I'll quickly just talk to you guys about the bad side of these arguments. Like, what is an inductively weak argument? That's an argument that's inductive, but the conclusion is not even very probable. Think of coincidences and random events. Like, I found a $5 bill on my morning run yesterday. Therefore, I will find a $5 bill on my morning run tomorrow. Anybody who finds money in the street knows that it's just a very unlikely thing because of how people closely guard their wallets. So if you find it once, that's not good enough evidence to think that it's going to reliably repeat. But of course, if a person found a $5 bill every single day for like a year, then now they would have a better inductive base to infer that conclusion from. Okay, so it all kind of depends on what the pattern is and whether it's likely to reoccur. If I say I wore red socks and my professor canceled class last Friday, so if I wear red socks next Friday, they'll cancel class again. There's no real law-like connection in nature between your choice of clothing and whatever was going on with the professor. So those would be inductively weak arguments. Good inductively strong arguments have a much more solid base of evidence and observation that you can generalize from, okay? Try it, yeah, see if the red sock thing works. Maybe if it keeps working, then that'll become the substance of an inductively strong argument, but I would have doubts. And of course, there could be deductively invalid arguments too. What if I told you Trump is older than 35, so therefore he's the president? Is that valid? No. It's true that he's over 35. It's also true that he's the president. But just being over 35, that fact by itself, does not logically guarantee that someone would be elected president. Otherwise, all of us that are older than 35 would have served as president of the United States. So sometimes you have arguments where the premises do not prove the conclusion, and then in that case, they are not deductively valid, or in other words, they're invalid. So whether it's an invalid argument or an inductively weak argument, we want to make sure to try our best to avoid those or to call them out when other people make them. If someone makes an invalid argument, they're drawing a conclusion based on weak or unsupporting evidence, then that's something you would simply, point out to them as a rational, critical thinker. You say, that's not a valid argument, though. I mean, you have that conclusion, but I don't see where your evidence really proves it. So we have to insist on good, high-quality arguments, not just be, easily won over to misleading or poorly stated claims. That's the bigger picture of our class, and we're just building up, our skills on that piece by piece. So today's real goal has been to just kind of go further into the topic of argument, to reinforce the material from last time, and then add to that, talking to you guys about the different types of sentences, to show you about deduction and induction, knowing about deductive validity and soundness, knowing how there can be some valid arguments that are not sound, and then induction. Inductively strong arguments are conclusions that are likely based on the evidence. Let me give you one case of a inductive pattern that broke. Prior to the election of Obama, every president had been a white male. And so you could have said, in 200 plus years of US history, we've never had a non-white president. So John McCain will win this election. And of course, Obama won the election. So inductive patterns can sometimes break even when they are strong and well established in the past. The homework, thanks Kimberly. I'm going to assign the homework. I think I said at the beginning of the class today, but I'm going to assign it on Wednesday. You need one more lecture before I can give you that homework because it involves some material on deductive arguments that I'm going to lecture on Wednesday. So I'm going to administer the homework instructions to you guys on Wednesday, and then you will have 12 days to complete it, which is plenty of time because it's kind of a short workbook exercise from the textbook. It has to do with different types of deductively valid arguments. So we'll go over that on Wednesday, and I'll talk to you all about it. Yeah, we've had a U.S. election every 4 years since 1776. That's over 200 years of history. What would be the inductive conclusion then? If we've had a U.S. presidential election every 4 years for like 240 years, therefore what? Last question, just to kind of drill this. Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, we've had an election every 4 years, so there will be another election this year, given that it's the 4th year in the cycle. Is that probably true? Yes, because there's a long historical track record going back. But if for some reason the election was canceled, or military coup, or some type of other complete disbanding of the democratic process or constitution, then that pattern would stop, which of course we hope never happens. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate all your time and attention. Have a great day. Anything between now and Wednesday that you want to do? Let me double check the syllabus. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Read the pages that I've designated in the book on the syllabus for September 2nd. So that's chapter 8, page 237 to 243, and 247 to 251. So you'll see it there in the syllabus on the calendar. Okay, guys, I'll let you go now. Thanks again so much. Have a great day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll check in with you guys on Wednesday then. Okay? Take it easy. Bye-bye. Thanks. Thank you.